A woman supports her husband quietly for years. The moment he becomes a bank manager, his behavior changes. He hands her divorce papers, cold, confident, calculated. Everyone expects her to break. She doesn't beg. She doesn't fight. She disappears. Months later, her life looks nothing like people expected. Not loud, not flashy, but untouchably elegant. And the man who thought he won realizes too late what he actually lost. I used to believe that stability was loud. That success announced itself through changed tone, better posture, sharper words. I was wrong. When my husband became a bank manager, nothing happened overnight. There was no celebration, no dramatic shift. Just small changes that didn't seem dangerous at first. Longer hours, shorter replies, a habit of checking his phone even when we were sitting together in silence. I noticed how he stopped asking my opinion on things. What to buy, where to invest, when to visit family. It was subtle, almost polite, as if my voice had gently expired and no one thought to mention it. For years, I had been the quiet constant, the one who kept things running when his salary was modest and his confidence fragile. I never reminded him of that. I didn't need credit. I thought partnership meant shared memory, not scorekeeping. But power has a way of rewriting history. The day he brought the divorce papers home, he didn't raise his voice. He didn't insult me. That was the most unsettling part. He sat across from me at the dining table, his jacket still on, his expression rehearsed. The papers were placed neatly between us, aligned as if presentation mattered more than consequence. He spoke calmly, professionally, as though this was a transaction he had already cleared internally. He said things like, "This is best for both of us, and we've grown apart, and I think we want different lives now." I listened without interrupting, not because I was weak, but because I was watching something important happen in real time. This was not a man asking for freedom. This was a man proving to himself that he could leave. When I didn't cry, he looked surprised. When I didn't argue, he looked almost offended. He had prepared for resistance. He hadn't prepared for silence. I signed the papers the same evening. Not impulsively. Not emotionally. I read every page. I asked one question about timelines. Then I picked up the pen. There was a pause in the room after that. A space where something dramatic was supposed to happen. Nothing did. I packed my things slowly over the next few days. Not everything. Just what mattered. Clothes that felt like me. Books I had read twice. A watch my mother had given me years ago. I didn't take memories. I didn't take bitterness. I didn't take anything that required explanation. When I left, there was no scene. No final conversation. No emotional closure. Some endings don't need noise. They need distance. People expected me to struggle. They expected visible grief, or desperation, or at least confusion. Instead, I disappeared. I moved into a smaller place in a quieter part of the city. No grand views. No impressive address. Just clean light in the mornings and silence that didn't feel lonely. For the first time in years, my days weren't shaped around someone else's ambition. I woke up without checking my phone. I ate when I was hungry, not when it was convenient. I learned something then that no one teaches you. Peace is not empty. It's selective. I became careful with my energy, careful with my time, careful with who had access to my thoughts. I stopped explaining myself. There were moments when I felt the absence, not of him, but of the life I thought I was building. That illusion took time to dissolve. I invested in myself quietly. Courses I had postponed. Skills I had minimized. Things I was always going to do later when life settled. Life doesn't settle. You do. Money came slowly at first. Then steadily. Then with confidence. Not because I chased it, but because I stopped shrinking around it. I didn't post about my progress. I didn't announce my wins. I didn't seek validation from people who only noticed success when it was loud. My life became smaller on the outside, but infinitely richer within. Months passed. One afternoon, I ran into someone who knew us both. They mentioned my ex casually, with a tone that carried admiration. "He's doing really well," they said. "He's risen fast." I smiled politely. Not because I cared, but because I understood something they didn't. Success without alignment feels heavier than failure. I heard later that he had asked about me. Not directly, just enough to sound attached. People do that when they want reassurance, not truth. I never reached out. Not out of pride. Out of clarity. There is a specific kind of dignity that comes from not needing to be seen. My life now doesn't look impressive from a distance. No dramatic entrances. No statements. But up close, it is intentional. Every choice deliberate. Every silence earned. I don't live loudly. I live well. And the strange thing about quiet luxury is this. It doesn't announce itself, but it is always noticed by the right people. People assume quiet lives are uneventful. They mistake calm for absence and silence for emptiness. What they don't understand is that quiet is often the aftermath of clarity. I didn't rebuild my life with dramatic goals. There was no vision board, no countdown to success. I simply stopped negotiating with myself. I began to notice how much of my old life had been performance. The careful listening, the measured responses, the constant adjustment to someone else's expectations. Freedom didn't arrive as excitement. It arrived as relief. I no longer had to make myself smaller, so someone else could feel taller. My routines became intentional. Morning walks instead of rushed schedules. Work chosen for meaning, not approval. Conversations that didn't require translation. I learned how much strength there is in not reacting. Occasionally, his name surfaced in places I didn't expect. A mutual contact. A passing comment. A tone that implied comparison. "He seems different now," someone once said. More serious. More guarded. I didn't ask questions. I didn't need updates. Distance teaches you things closeness never could. What I realized slowly was this. He hadn't left because he outgrew me. He left because he couldn't recognize himself beside someone who no longer needed him to feel complete. That kind of insecurity doesn't announce itself. It disguises itself as confidence. Quiet luxury is misunderstood because it doesn't seek witnesses. It isn't about ownership. It's about autonomy. I spent money thoughtfully. Not to impress. Not to compete. Quality replaced quantity. Time replaced urgency. Privacy replaced validation. There is a specific peace that comes when no one knows enough about your life to judge it. One evening, months later, I received a message from an unfamiliar number. There was no greeting, just a sentence. "I didn't think you'd move on so easily." I stared at the screen for a long moment, not because it hurt, but because it revealed something important. People assume silence means stillness. They assume you are waiting. I never replied. The truth is, I hadn't moved on easily. I had moved on thoroughly. There's a difference. Healing is not loud. It doesn't need witnesses. It doesn't demand acknowledgement. It happens in private moments. In decisions no one applauds. In habits that feel ordinary but change everything. I stopped romanticizing struggle. I stopped confusing endurance with love. And something unexpected happened. I began to attract different people. Not impressed by appearances. Not threatened by independence. People who listened without waiting to speak. Who respected boundaries without testing them. For the first time, my presence was not a negotiation. I heard later that his life had become crowded. Meetings. Obligations. Appearances. Success. Measured constantly. Defended daily. He had everything he thought he wanted. And none of the peace he didn't know he needed. That's the quiet cost of choosing image over alignment. Once I passed by a place we used to visit together. Nothing dramatic happened. No memories rushed in. Just a simple observation. I had outgrown the version of myself who believed love required self-erasure. I didn't feel superior. I felt complete. My life now is not designed to be admired. It's designed to be lived. There are mornings filled with unhurried thought. Evenings that don't require distraction. A sense of ownership over my time that no promotion could replace. I don't explain my choices. I don't defend my silence. I don't correct assumptions. People project meaning where there is none. That's not my responsibility. What matters is this. I wake up without resentment. I go to sleep without regret. And in between, I live deliberately. The greatest revenge I never planned was becoming unreachable to the version of life that once diminished me. Not emotionally, not materially, but internally. I no longer respond to narratives that don't honor my reality. Quiet luxury isn't about what you have. It's about what no longer has you. And that kind of wealth doesn't fluctuate. It compounds. Silently.